You probably have an image of Spain in your head right now. Like, if I asked you to picture it, it almost certainly involves the rapid strum of a flamenco guitar, a massive steaming plate of paella, or maybe just staying out way too late wandering these old cobblestone
Yeah, the
streets.
classic postcard.
Exactly, the postcard. But what if I told you that image, the one the whole world knows, is basically just a well-marketed tourist brochure? Today, we are ripping up that brochure. We've pulled together this incredible array of historical archives, local slang dictionaries, and regional analyses to decode Spain's actual cultural DNA. Because when you get past the surface level, you realize that talking about a singular Spanish culture is, well, it's basically impossible.
It really is.
Mhm.
I mean, the source material we're looking at today paints a picture of a country that is intensely fragmented, yet somehow it still holds together. We are going to explore the history, the food, the survival instincts, and even the street slang of 5 distinct Spanish regions. And to understand how they all fit into the borders of one nation, you have to completely drop the idea of uniformity.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because reading through this research, a metaphor really hit me. Spain isn't a single catchy pop song that you just play on the radio. It's an ambitious, deeply layered concept album.
Oh, I like that.
Right. Every region we're exploring today is a drastically different track on that album, complete with its own tempo, its own instruments, and a completely unique backstory that explains why it sounds the way it does.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. And if Spain is a concept album, the title track, the one that sets the baseline tempo for the whole project, has to be Madrid.
Right, the geographic and royal heartbeat of the country. But what stood out to me in the data isn't just that Madrid is big, it's how it functions. Madrid feels less like a traditional capital and more like a gravitational black hole in the center of the Iberian Peninsula.
A black hole?
Yeah, like it just pulls art, food, politics, and people from all the other regions into its orbit, compressing them into this incredibly dense, sleepless city. It's basically the Broadway of Spain, just dramatic and central and constantly demanding your attention.
Well, that gravitational pull was actually a very deliberate historical choice. Back in 1561, King Philip II decided to move his court to Madrid.
Wow, 1561.
Yeah, and at the time, it wasn't some major economic powerhouse or a strategic port city. It was chosen largely because it was right in the geographic center of the peninsula. He wanted a hub that could control the various territories. But over the centuries, that central hub has been marked by incredible historical trauma.
Like what?
Well, you have the famous Dos de Mayo uprising in 1808. The citizens literally fought Napoleon's troops in the streets with whatever they could find. And then, of course, the absolute devastation of the Spanish Civil War from 1936 and 1939, where Madrid endured these brutal sieges.
Man. And yet, out of that really heavy, bloody history, you get a modern lifestyle that is intensely, almost aggressively vibrant. The architecture gives you this grand imperial backdrop, like the Royal Palace, the Plaza Mayor, the Puerta del Sol. But against that incredibly formal backdrop, you have a society that is obsessed with street life. And I mean obsessed. Like eating dinner at 10 p.m. isn't a late night out. It's just Tuesday.
What's fascinating here is how that street life acts as a cultural pressure valve. Consider La Movida Madrileña.
Oh, the movement in the 80s, right?
Exactly. After the dictatorship ended in the late 1970s, Madrid was like a pressure cooker popping its lid. The 1980s saw this massive, chaotic explosion of countercultural music, punk fashion, and avant-garde film. It completely redefined the city.
That's wild.
It was. And that same creative engine is what makes it a launchpad for global, genre-bending artists today, like Rosalia. It's a city of high European fashion and trendy influencer culture, operating in a space built by monarchs.
You really do see that contrast everywhere in the sources. They have the Museo del Prado, one of the most prestigious art museums on Earth, sitting right alongside this everyday, gritty papas culture. Everyone is just standing shoulder to shoulder, eating a bocadillo de calamares, a fried squid sandwich, or this hearty cocido madrileño stew.
And the language matches that energy, too.
Yeah, even the local slang reflects this fast-paced egalitarian vibe. You hear veil for, okay, people calling each other tío or tía, which literally means uncle or aunt, but they use it like dude, and they genuinely live by the motto, Madrid nunca duerme. Madrid never sleeps.
Yeah, it never does.
But that actually makes me wonder, because Madrid has all that royal power, that cultural gravity, and it speaks the standard Castilian Spanish. Does it end up steamrolling the identities of the rest of the country?
That's the natural assumption, but the reality is quite the opposite. Madrid doesn't steamroll. It absorbs. Because it is the capital, it has spent centuries drawing in people from every other province.
Yeah.
If you ask a quote-unquote Madrileño where their grandparents are from, chances are it's not Madrid.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So the city honors its traditional past, like the San Isidro Festival, where locals still dress up in those classic checkered chalapo and chalapa outfits, but it acts as a cultural sponge. It provides a massive, neon-lit stage for the rest of the country to interact on.
Okay, well, here's where it gets really interesting to me. If Madrid is the stage, we need to figure out where the actual script for those world-famous Spanish stereotypes comes from. And for that, we have to look south to Andalusia, or Andalusia.
Oh, definitely.
Because when you picture the whitewashed villages, the passionate flamenco dancers, the olive trees stretching to the horizon, you aren't picturing the whole country. You are specifically picturing Andalusia.
Exactly. But the history of how those specific symbols were forged is incredibly complex. To understand Andalusia, you have to look at the era of Al-Andalus.
Right.
We are talking about the period of Islamic rule that began in the year 711 and lasted until 1492.
Wait, that's nearly 800 years. That's not a temporary occupation. That's an entire civilization.
It was a golden age of science, philosophy, and architecture that completely reshaped the landscape. You see it in the breathtaking geometric arches of the Alhambra in Granada or the massive Mesquita of Cordoba. And that era only officially ended with the fall of Granada to the Catholic monarchs in 1492.
Which, not coincidentally, is the exact same year Columbus sailed from Andalusia to the Americas.
Precisely.
And looking at how those eras collided, I noticed a striking juxtaposition in the notes. On one hand, Andalusia is famous for Semana Santa Holy Week. These are massive, fervent, deeply Catholic processions with huge floats and burning incense.
Very intense.
Yeah, but their entire visual and cultural identity is built on top of Islamic arches, Moorish irrigation systems, and a deep mix of ancient Christian, Muslim, and Jewish worlds. On paper, it feels almost contradictory to have this fervent Catholic tradition living inside Islamic architecture.
It might seem contradictory, but Andalusia is the ultimate cultural synthesis. When the Reconquista happened, the past wasn't simply erased, it was layered. The best example of this is flamenco.
Oh, yeah, the music.
Right. The research mentions legendary artists like Paco de Lucia and Camarón de la Isla. When you hear the passion of flamenco, the crying of the guitar, the rhythmic stomping, those aren't just artistic choices made for entertainment.
Right, it's deeper than that.
Much deeper. Flamenco was born in the marginalized communities of Andalusia, the Romani, the displaced Moors, the Jewish populations hiding in the hills. It is the literal, breathing survival of a deeply layered, emotionally complex history. It is the sound of cultures colliding, suffering, and ultimately surviving together.
Wow. That context changes everything. You really can feel that warmth and survival in their everyday life, too. The dialect in the South has a softer pronunciation. They tend to drop the consonants at the ends of words.
Very true.
And their slang is full of raw emotion. You hear ole, or someone calling you mi arma, which literally means my soul.
Such a beautiful phrase.
It really is.
Yeah.
And physically, the region is built for endurance. Those Moorish irrigation systems we mentioned, they are part of why the region is blanketed with millions of olive trees today.
Millions of them.
Yeah, and those trees, along with the pigs that forage on acorns to make the famous jamón ibérico, are cornerstones of a cuisine that had to survive harsh, dry summers. You wash down a hot day with cold gazpacho, sharing the rugged landscape with the incredibly rare Iberian lynx.
It's a region that has fully embraced its ancient, layered past and wears its historical heart completely on its sleeve.
So Andalusia leans into the classic stereotype. But what happens when you have a region whose entire cultural identity is built on rejecting that exact same image?
Now we're moving northeast.
Exactly. That brings us to Catalonia and its capital, Barcelona.
Catalonia is fascinating because its historical trajectory points in a completely different direction. Its roots go back to the Roman settlement of Barcino, which eventually transitioned into a powerful, independent medieval maritime region dominating Mediterranean trade. But the turning points in their modern history are deeply tied to cultural defense. A critical moment was the year 1714, during the War of Spanish Succession. Catalonia backed the losing side in a massive war for the Spanish crown, and the punishment for losing was severe. The new king stripped away their centuries-old laws and institutions.
So it wasn't just a political defeat on a battlefield, it was a cultural trauma.
Exactly.
And that trauma compounded in the 20th century under Francisco Franco's dictatorship following the Spanish Civil War. The regime actively repressed their regional identity. I read they weren't even allowed to speak their own language, Catalan, in public without facing severe consequences.
Correct. And when you understand that history of repression, you understand their modern identity. It is an identity built on fierce pride in their language, their autonomy, and a very specific type of communal strength.
Right.
And I should note here, while modern headlines are often dominated by the politics of the Catalan independence movement, our focus today is really looking beneath the politics. We're just impartially looking at the underlying cultural DNA, the language, the art, the teamwork that fuels that fierce regional pride. We aren't taking any political stance on the movement itself.
Of course. We're just looking at the cultural outputs, and you see that teamwork perfectly visualized in their traditions. The most mind-blowing example from the cheat sheets is the castlers.
The human towers.
Yes. These are the human towers they build during festivals. People literally climb on each other's shoulders to build a tower up to 10 stories high. Building these human towers is like a real-life, high-stakes trust fall for an entire society.
It really is.
And looking at the sheer mechanics of it, it made me wonder, why is community cooperation so uniquely emphasized here, especially compared to the individualistic solo passion of an Andalusian flamenco dancer?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that emphasis on community is a direct survival mechanism. When you have a history of needing to secretly guard your language and your culture from the state, you learn that your ultimate reliance is on your neighbors.
That makes total sense.
Right. The castellers aren't just a fun acrobatic trick. They were a working metaphor for Catalan society itself.
Okay.
Everyone, from the strongest, widest base at the bottom to the lightest child trembling at the very top, is strictly required for the structure to stand. If one person fails, the whole thing comes down.
That communal defiance spills over into everything they do. You have the mind-bending, rule-breaking architecture of Antoni Gaudí, like the Sagrada Familia. You have the surrealism of Salvador Dalí. You even see it in sports.
FC Barcelona.
Yeah, FC Barcelona's motto is Més que un club, more than a club. It functions essentially as an unarmed army, a symbol for the whole region to rally behind.
Even their celebrations have an edge to them.
Absolutely. The La Marseillaise Festival features the Corfoc, or fire runs, where people dress as devils and are literally running through the streets under showers of sparks and fireworks.
Sounds incredibly intense.
It is, and they pair that intensity with this incredible anti-authoritarian sense of humor. Take the Kagener. It's a traditional, humorous figurine of a peasant guy. Well, basically going to the bathroom, placed right in the middle of the sacred Christmas nativity scene.
It's hilarious.
It's so good. And it's all celebrated with cava, their local sparkling wine, and pa em tomaquet, which is just bread rubbed with fresh tomato and olive oil, proving that perfection is sometimes just a few simple local ingredients. And their slang reflects that unwavering pride. You'll constantly hear, Visca Catalunya, long live Catalonia.
It's a culture of innovation wrapped in a fierce, protective layer. But if we travel just down the Mediterranean coast from Catalonia, we hit a region that shares some linguistic roots. They speak Valencian, which is very closely related to Catalan, but they express their identity in a completely different, gloriously chaotic way.
We're talking about Valencia.
We are talking about Valencia.
The explosive middle ground. The archives on Valencia are wild. They have a similarly layered identity, founded by the Romans, became a major Moorish city, and then was reclaimed by the Christians in 1238.
Right.
But the way they handle their environment and their history is entirely unique. For example, the city used to be repeatedly devastated by massive floods from the Toria River. Instead of just abandoning the floodplains, what did they do? They executed an unbelievable engineering project to literally reroute the entire river outside the city.
Just move the river.
Yeah, and they turned the old dry riverbed into a massive miles-long public park.
It's an incredible feat of resilience. Walking through that park today feels like walking through the city's living room. Yeah. And it creates this stunning visual contrast. You have the futuristic, gleaming sci-fi architecture of the City of Arts and Sciences sitting just a short distance from La Lonja de la Seda, a towering Gothic building from their medieval silk trade days.
But the thing that truly baffled me in the research is their approach to festivals, specifically Las Fallas. Let me push back on this for a second, because I want to make sure I'm grasping the mechanics of this.
Here.
So you and I are supposed to understand that the people of Valencia spend an entire year painstakingly building these giant, beautiful, intricate sculptures out of wood and paper mache just to intentionally pack them with explosives and burn them to the ground in massive street fires.
That's exactly what they do.
But that feels completely counterintuitive to the careful preservation of history we saw in Madrid or the deep emotional survivalism of Andalusia.
This raises an important question about the Valencian mindset. Why destroy your own art? It's because the art of Las Fallas is fundamentally satirical. They use these giant sculptures to ruthlessly roast politicians, celebrities, and society itself.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, burning them isn't about destroying history. It's about a cathartic rebirth. It's a collective belief that you shouldn't take yourself too seriously, that the establishment deserves to be mocked, and that every year you have the power to start fresh.
So it's the exact same mindset as the river.
Yes.
Taking a devastating, flooded river and transforming it into a beautiful public garden, they take chaos and engineer it into a celebration.
Precisely. They are masters of the explosive release. You see it in La Tomatina, the famous giant tomato fight in the nearby town of Buñol. You hear it in the Mascletà, which are daytime fireworks designed not for their visual beauty, but entirely for the bone-rattling, rhythmic sound that physically shakes the city square.
It's pure, visceral energy, and that energy totally dictates their food and music. This is the birthplace of the original paella valenciana, and exploring the why behind the food is fascinating.
Oh, the paella history is great.
Because the original recipe doesn't have coastal seafood in it. It's made with rabbit, chicken, and butter beans because that is exactly what the farmers had available inland near the Albufera wetlands where the rice is grown.
Makes perfect sense.
Right. You eat that, wash it down with sweet horchata made from locally grown tiger nuts, and surround yourself with endless orange groves. And the soundtrack ranges from the traditional Jota Valenciana folk music to a massive Indian reggaeton acts like the Valencian rap group Zoo.
Such a mix.
Yeah, they have this great exclamation, X, which is kind of like a classic yo, and they love spending evenings a la fresca, just bringing a chair out to the sidewalk and chilling outside in the cool night air.
Valencia is the coastal bridge looking out over the water. But if we follow that gaze and leave the mainland entirely, we arrive at our final destination where the concept of time completely changes, the Balearic Islands.
So what does this all mean? We leave the mainland and head to Ibiza, Mallorca, and Menorca. This is where the contrast in the data just completely blew my mind.
How so?
Well, you have an archipelago that features prehistoric Taliotic stone towers. Then the Romans arrived to control the trade routes. Then the Moors came and revolutionized the agriculture. Fast forward to the 1960s, and it becomes the global epicenter for the hippie movement, drawing artists seeking total freedom.
And today?
And today, it is the undisputed global capital of electronic dance music, fueled by superstar DJ residencies like David Guetta and Calvin Harris. It's like finding a prehistoric stone tower sitting right in the middle of a VIP nightclub. How can one island chain balance being a quiet, nature-driven sanctuary with being the neon dance capital of the world?
The secret superpower of the Balearics is supreme adaptability. Their isolation out in the Mediterranean has dictated their entire history. You can't fight the tide when you're an island. You have to ride it.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. They have historically absorbed waves of outsiders over centuries. The Romans brought trade, the Moors brought irrigation, the 60s hippies brought art, and the modern DJs bring the booming economy of the Balearic beat. But through all of those invasions and tourism booms, the locals maintain a core philosophy. Tranquilo.
Tranquilo, relax.
Exactly. The local slang perfectly reflects the lifestyle. No pasa nada, no worries. Because underneath the million-dollar yachts and the Café Del Mar chill-out lounges, the islands are firmly anchored by the natural world.
Right.
They still practice the ancient rhythmic ball pages dance in Ibiza. They still celebrate the St. Joan Festival with bonfires on the beach and incredible displays of horsemanship in Menorca.
They wear ad-lib fashion, which was inspired by the hippie era, all white, flowy, natural fabrics that breathe in the island heat. They eat sweet ensaimada pastries and fresh seafood. They share the land with the unique Ibiza wall lizard and dense, fragrant pine forests.
And arguably the most important anchor keeping this whole ecosystem alive is something completely hidden underwater, Posidonia oceanica.
The seagrass.
Yes. It's an ancient, sprawling seagrass meadow that surrounds the islands. It acts as the lungs of the Mediterranean. It is entirely responsible for filtering the water and giving it that famous crystal-clear turquoise color.
Wow.
Without the Posidonia, there is no clear water. Without the clear water, there is no tourism, and the VIP clubs vanish. No matter how many tourists arrive, the true identity of the Balearics remains tied to the sea, the salt, and the stone.
Okay, let's pull back and look at the big picture of what we've unpacked today. We set out to decode Spain's cultural DNA to really get past the tourist brochure. And the data proves that Spain isn't just one thing.
Not at all.
It's the royal, sleepless, gravitational pull of Madrid. It's the deeply layered, passionate soul and Moorish endurance of Andalusia. It's the defiant, community-driven survival spirit of Catalonia. It's the explosive, satirical resilience of Valencia. And it is the timeless, adaptable rhythm of the Balearic Islands.
It truly is a remarkable, deeply complicated mosaic. But as we wrap up this deep dive into the source material, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on. We've just spent time exploring how centuries of geography, conflict, and deeply rooted traditions have shaped these 5 distinct regional identities.
Right, the different tracks on our concept album.
Exactly. But we live in a world that is becoming increasingly digital, borderless, and globalized. Information, music, and food trends cross oceans in seconds.
Yeah, that's true.
So what will the next layer of Spain's cultural identity look like? Will the relentless equalizing pressure of global tourism and the internet cause these fierce regional differences to eventually blur together into a single, uniform, easily consumable identity?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Or, and this is the flip side, will these distinct regions actually dig their heels in, making their unique heritage even more pronounced as a vital defense mechanism to protect their local identities from being washed away?
That is the ultimate question, because as we've seen today, when you try to force a complex, sprawling concept album into a single 3-minute pop song, you miss the absolute best parts of the music. Keep questioning the world around you. We'll catch you next time.